It was one of those cold November nights in rural Pennsylvania. The trees had already been stripped bare by the wind, and the sky was blanketed with clouds that snuffed out the moonlight. That night, 21-year-old Jessica Moore sat on the couch of her family's countryside home, her legs wrapped in a thick fleece blanket, and a steaming mug of hot cocoa cupped in her hands. Her parents were away for the weekend visiting her grandmother in upstate New York. It was just her and her 14-year-old brother, Tyler, at home. The house was old, built in the 1960s, with a wide front porch, creaky wooden floors, and windows that seemed to groan in protest whenever the wind pressed against them. Jessica had always liked the isolation, until that night. She had been watching an old horror movie on TV, ironically enough, and Tyler was up in his room playing video games. The rain had started lightly earlier in the evening, but now it had turned into a full-on downpour. The wind howled like a distant animal, and every once in a while, a gust would rattle the windows. As Jessica reached for the remote to turn off the movie, it was getting late. She suddenly heard the sound. A knock. A soft, almost hesitant knock at the front door. She froze. It was nearly midnight. Their house was a good mile from the nearest neighbor, and their long driveway meant no one ever just stopped by. She stared at the door, unsure if she had imagined it. Then she heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. Her heart started to pound. She tiptoed over to the door but didn't open it. Instead, she leaned to the side and peeked out the small sidelight window. No one was there. Just rain cascading down the glass and the porch light flickering slightly. "Tyler," she called up the stairs. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah," he called back. "Is someone at the door?" "I don't know," she said, glancing outside again. For a few minutes, the house was silent except for the storm. Jessica tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was just the wind knocking a branch against the house. Maybe her imagination was playing tricks on her after watching that horror movie. She walked back to the couch, curled up again under her blanket, and tried to calm her nerves. Then she heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Not at the front door this time, but at the window beside the couch. She snapped her head toward it. Her breath caught in her throat. Someone was standing there. A tall figure, obscured by the rain and the darkness, stood just beyond the glass. She couldn't make out a face, but she could see the silhouette, tall, still, and staring. Jessica screamed and jumped to her feet. Tyler came running down the stairs. "What is it?" he shouted. "There's someone outside," she cried, pointing at the window. But when they both turned to look, the figure was gone. Tyler ran to the door and locked it, then bolted the deadbolt. Jessica grabbed her phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? "There's someone outside our house," she said, her voice shaking. "I saw them standing right outside the living room window." "Is your door locked?" "Yes." "Is anyone else home with you?" "My little brother. Our parents are out of town." "Stay on the line with me. Officers are being dispatched to your location. Do not open the door for anyone, understood?" Jessica nodded, even though the operator couldn't see her. "Yes, okay." The operator stayed on the line with her as she and Tyler backed away from the front of the house. They turned off all the lights and crouched in the hallway, listening to every creak and groan the old house made. Then came the sound of footsteps. Not inside, but outside. Slow, heavy footsteps crunching on the gravel near the side of the house. Jessica whispered to the operator, "I hear them again." The operator told her to remain calm and that officers were just minutes away. Then, just as suddenly as they had started, the footsteps stopped. The house was quiet again, except for the rain. 5 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled into the driveway, their lights flashing red and blue. Jessica and Tyler rushed to the door and unlocked it for the officers. The siblings recounted everything that had happened, every knock, every sound, the figure at the window. The officers walked the perimeter of the house with flashlights. Nothing was found. No footprints, no signs of forced entry, no indication anyone had been there at all. "Are you sure you weren't just spooked by the storm?" one of the officers asked gently. Jessica insisted she had seen someone. The officer didn't press further but told her they would patrol the area and to call again if anything else happened. The siblings tried to sleep in the living room that night, but neither could relax. Jessica kept her phone in her hand the entire time, watching the windows like a hawk. By morning, the storm had passed. The sky was overcast, and everything outside was soaked. Jessica walked out onto the front porch, still shaken but hoping to feel some sense of peace in the daylight. That's when she saw it. On the far edge of the property, near the tree line, was something shiny glinting in the grass. She cautiously walked toward it. It was a small object, metallic, old, rusted. She picked it up. A key. Not one she recognized. When she looked up, her stomach dropped. There, nailed into the tree with a rusty nail, was a Polaroid photo. A photo of her, standing at the living room window. From the night before. She dropped the key and screamed. Police were called again. They took the photo as evidence, but the image had no fingerprints. They said whoever it was had been watching from the woods, taking pictures from the shadows. Jessica and Tyler were moved to a relative's house until their parents returned. The police never caught the man. Whoever he was, he never came back, at least not to their knowledge. But for months, Jessica couldn't sleep without checking every lock, every window, 3 or 4 times a night. She installed cameras, alarms, motion lights, everything. But no face ever appeared on them. Years passed. Jessica eventually moved to a city for college, but the memory stayed with her like a scar under the surface, always there, reminding her that safety is sometimes just an illusion. She kept the Polaroid. Not because she wanted to, but because it was real. Proof that the night had happened. Proof that sometimes, someone really is outside. And to this day, whenever the wind howls through the trees or she hears a knock at the door late at night, her heart jumps, and she remembers that on one cold November night, someone had been watching. And they got closer than anyone should ever get.